committee in this school district has had to face in recent years. I know that your work was honest and fair. It was free from any politics. I am absolutely convinced of that you had the best interests of the children in all neighborhoods at heart. I hope that you enjoyed the work that you did. I know you put a lot of hours into it. I think you did a marvelous job. I know that everyone is not happy, yet I think about the fact that we're taking 11 attendance areas, converting it to 13. We're going from K to 5 to K to 6, and that potentially these changes could have affected up to 7,000 students. When I look at the number of possibilities and twists and turns that you could have made, I think you've just done an absolutely outstanding job, and I appreciate your work, so thank you. And yes,
may I just make a comment? I too want to thank the task force, having been the chairman of that group. I think they did work very hard. I think they listened very actively and tried to be as responsive to the community as they could, and yet at the same time solve the community, the overall problem. I'd also like to say, just prior to the board's vote, whatever that may be, I think we need to move on from today and consider that we want youngsters to come to school in September of '94 with the most positive attitudes that can possibly be there. And I think all of us who are parents know that positive attitudes largely generate from what mom and dad think at home. So whether we are entirely in accord and agreement with whatever the board's decision is, I would only ask that we all accept it and move on and help our children see it in a positive light.
Thank you, Charlie. I recommend approval of the elementary attendance areas effective September 1994 as amended by the board on 11/9/1993.
Before we take a motion and second, I'd like to open this up for board discussion, reaction, comments.
Yes, Mrs. Davis, I'd like to say just a thing here. Over the weekend, I had an opportunity to take all the letters that I've gotten to date on this, and I'm sure we all probably have the same number. And I laid them all out on the dining room table and looked through them, and I weeded out those that sound a little paranoid and those that sound a little hysterical, and tried to find the ones with the best case, the most logical understanding of events and sequencing. And I really have to say that those specifically in the area of 24 and 25 really has shaken the confidence that I had about a week or so ago at the work session. Their arguments were consistent. They were reasonable, and I just felt they built a good case. If there be 4 other board members tonight that would join me, I'd be willing to work towards an alleviation in that area. But if not, I recognize certainly that you've gotten to this point, and you have to acknowledge when to fish or cut bait. I do feel that they made a good case. I would work to help in that alleviation. There's unhappy parents, and then sometimes there's miserable parents, and you hate to see the ones go away miserable. Unhappy, we all have to understand a certain amount of that because we're all going to face it. But you don't want to see some go away miserable. And if there be others, I would help with that effort to whatever way I could. But again, I recognize you got to get to a point where we make a decision. I don't know if there be 4 others, but I'm willing to lend myself to that.
Donna, as somebody that's worked extensively on this project, I want to let the people from area 24, 25, 27 know that many of you I spoke to, I read your letters, that all along, the thing that I myself kept in mind was to minimize the movement of children, particularly those for the second time. We've heard a lot tonight about 13 for 24, 25. The bottom line in my mind is we minimize the number of children we move, particularly the second time, all right? I feel bad for 24. There's nothing I could do. I worked really hard for that, and the committee did too. I want to thank Mr., I think his name was Collins, who said that just because you're leaving a school doesn't mean your children cannot be friends. I mean, that thought kept coming back to me all night. Use it as a plus. I know this has been a very emotional thing for you. We've said it many times, the children will do fine. It's the adults that have a little problem here. And I'm talking from a personal level. I did it. It was the most positive thing. the school is going to go out of its way to accommodate these kids, to make a great impression when they come, all sorts of programs to make them feel welcome. What we need you to do now is, as hard as you fought, to reverse your thinking. We don't want you to think they're sending him to a war zone, to make this a positive thing. We work together, it's going to be a success. I had a couple of notes here. I wanted to say, too, in regard to 27, that I did hear you, but then again, the same thing is minimize the movement. We're not moving you, you're staying. And I think we have to be consistent with that throughout our whole plan, otherwise it'll fall apart. I've tried every ways, and I think, Donna, it's time to cut bait.
I'd like to agree with Pat. We really have to move forward. We've got the secondary schools to work on, which we're meeting on the 29th. And that's going to be just as emotional, just as controversial, and just as difficult because you're going to 2 schools that are equal and 1 school that isn't. And that's going to be, being the junior high is a larger school. So that's one thing. I think above all, I'd like to really say thank you to Charlie Keffer. He has sat here night after night, day after day, and listened and tried to work the best work that possibly could happen for our children and our education. And I don't think Charlie gets a lot of credit for having to listen, to answer questions, to work on numbers. And I'd like to say thank you, Charlie. And I'd also like to thank the committee.
Thank you,
Pat, I'd like to add some comments. I, too, like Donna, this weekend sat down and looked at all the comments, all the letters that I received, and laid them out and was able to look at them and take the emotion out of them. Having a son who was in his 5th school by the time he was in 6th grade, and my daughter was in her 3rd school by 4th grade, I was able to, probably better than anyone else on the board, understand what it's like to have kids that age change schools. In some cases that went very well, in some cases it took them a little longer. But the bottom line was that they all gained new friends. They acclimated themselves to learning the new buildings that they were in without any problems. Probably my wife and I's anxiety about their moves were greater than my children's. So I was able to look and weed out those emotional ones just like Donna did. And I think in the end, what the task force has done has achieved us what I would estimate as a 99.99% solution. For us to take these comments and make the changes that are recommended to try to find what that other 100th of 1% solution is, we could wicker this and cogitate forever and never ever possibly get a better solution. Everybody we change and we move, we could possibly appease some parents, make them happy, and make some other ones unhappy. I feel that in the end, the solution that we have now is a positive one. It's the best for the district as a whole, and it met the original guidelines set up by the committee that they started out with. We had 3 at least meetings of community involvement where we were able to fine-tune it to reach that 99.99% solution, and I guess that's even better than Ivory soap. So I'm for it. Thank you.
He's talking numbers again.
I've been a parent in this district for 14 years. My house hasn't moved, but I've been in 3 elementary schools on the Holy School.
You're still in
Association.
elementary
3 elementary schools.
Thursday's still there?
That happens in a growing school district. It is not a lot of fun when that happens. There is a lot of fear, a lot of anticipation. It does, however, work. And every time when my children have moved to a new school, they did indeed meet new friends. In the case of the older ones, they got to know more people by the time they got to the middle school because they had friends from both schools. And in fact, 2 years ago when Gwinnett Square opened, the program that this district put in place to make the change a learning experience and a growth experience to help them adapt to change, using this change to help them adapt to change in their life. It was, I was involved in that, and I can tell you that it was an excellent, excellent process and program. And if you saw the number of people who, through this process, were standing out here and saying, "Don't move me" from Gwinnett Square, you can tell what the level of success is of that effort.
My hands are frozen.
But it is time to get on with that effort. That has to be implemented. There's a lot more places to implement it this time. There's a lot more kids affected, and we need to get on with it. I believe that when I looked at all of the pieces, 24, 27, the other pieces have requested changes, and I think we've all got our piles here. The fact is that when I went back and screened them against the criteria, and if I went to say, what would happen if I supported that change, I went against the criteria for every change that was proposed, and so I will support the recommendation as it was presented by Dr. Elman. And I think it's time to move on and get together with implementing the educational process of this change.
I too would like to add my 2 cents in. I'd like to thank the committee for more than 2 cents worth of work. You did do a fine job with a lot of things to work with, and I'd like to thank Charlie for your efforts in it, and also for the welcoming program that I'm sure you will have in place for all the kids that are being moved and the ones that are being left behind. My son, his friend is moving. As a child, I moved several times because my family moved from New Jersey to Pennsylvania, and I went to one school. Then they moved us from private school to public school, and I went to another school, not with friends. And then we moved to a permanent home in the North Penn District, and I moved again, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I think I fared all the better for it, and my parents survived as well. And it's a hard time, and you wonder what's out there and what the new school holds, whether it's a new old school or a new school. And I went out to Inglewood and toured with Art Wood and John Schickling, gave us the tour. The quality of education we know is identical because we have a curriculum district-wide that stays the same. It doesn't matter which 5th grade or which 3rd grade you go to, it's the same quality of education. What Inglewood has to offer is every classroom is a perimeter room. They all have windows for the sunshine and for checking the weather, for hands-on science. And there was some concern about the lighting in the all-purpose gymnasium. That will be changed this summer and standardized the way the new buildings are. The office area and the open classrooms have all been renovated. The school the inside's been painted. The playground area was resurfaced, mainly because they had to move the oil tank. But there won't be an old school, new school problem there. The Gwinnett Square family is nice. John has the same thing with 200 less kids. So the small family is nice. I have 7 brothers. A small family would be nice. And at the same time, I'm not totally satisfied with the proposal as it's coming down. And there's 2 areas that I would like to still see changed. The Crick area in 27 from Keeler Road, move it back to the Crick. Because to me, Keeler Road is still a country road. It's not like Allentown Road or 40-foot or even my road. And if I lived on that road, my kids would play across the street. It doesn't make sense to be on Keeler Road the way it is. And I'd also like to see sections 24 and 25 remain at Gwinnett Square, and sections 12 and 13 stay at Inglewood. Thank you.
Other comments? Nope. All right, well, there being no voice support then for Donna and Terry, I would assume we will vote on the proposal as recommended. And do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Shields, second by Leahy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
1 nay? Motion passes.
It's a small little thing.
Before I make a recommendation on the next two items, I'd just like to say that I'll just wait a moment until these people leave.
Kids in the school district. And she used her kids.
You get to the point where mine was about conscience. It's just kind of.
Earlier this evening, in the personnel report that Mrs. Mengel gave, she indicated that we were making some changes for next year with the assignment of principals. And with that, I am recommending the appointment of Ann Heffron as an elementary principal in our school district. It's a pleasure to recommend Ann as principal. Ann has been a member of the staff here at North Penn. Many parents, many board members know her. She went and obtained her advanced training to become a principal, and we've had the pleasure of being able to have Ann fill in. She filled in at Gwinnett Square, so many parents know her when she was there, filling in for Dr. Barbara Burke-Stevenson. And she also filled in at Knapp Elementary School, and she did a fine job in both of those locations. It's always a pleasure to be able to take one of our existing staff and reward them and find someone who can serve the district so well. And Ann will be returning to Knapp next year, where she did fill in for Lita Thompson. And so with that, I would recommend the appointment of Ann Heffron as an elementary principal effective July 1, 1994.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mengel, second by Burkowski. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Is Ann here? Ann, would you please stand up? It's actually a double pleasure tonight because just as I described that Ann Heffron has been an employee of the school district, Susan Sinkinson has been one of our staff developers in the school district since 1985, and preceding that she was a special education teacher in the school district. Many members of our faculty have worked with Susan as a staff developer. Our board has had the opportunity to work with her. Susan will still continue to be a staff developer. She's not losing responsibilities. We're going to add to Susan's responsibilities. We've heard a number of people in our community say that we need to be doing more long-range planning. In a number of areas. We also have some state requirements in curriculum relative to strategic planning. So we approached Susan and asked her if she would mind taking on some additional responsibilities. So she graciously agreed, and we're happy to have her continue in this function, but to become an administrator here in the North Penn School District. And so I'm pleased to recommend the approval of Susan Sinkinson as Supervisor of Staff Development and Strategic Planning, salary of $64,530, effective tomorrow.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Shields, second by Burkowski. Any discussion? If I could for a second, I've had the pleasure of working with Sue for over 10 years now and watching her grow in her role, and I don't know a more talented or more deserving person for this position, so I'm glad to see it happen. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
It would have been embarrassing to stand up and then... If you could turn, please, to Addendum BAA1.
We did one.
I recommend the approval of Linda Urban as ESL tutor for the 93-94 school year.
Second.
Motion by Radcliffe, second by Kukowski. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And if you could kindly return now again to page BA2, item E. I recommend approval of the proposed timeline for the construction of the new high school.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Leahy, second by Kukowski. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item F, I recommend the approval of the transportation service contracts for the 93-94 school year.
So moved.
Motion by Kukowski, second by Halverstadt. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item G, I recommend the approval of the Inglewood Fuel Oil Tank Project Change Order Number 1 in the net amount of $25,108 to Worth and Company, Inc. The original contract sum was $98,017. The new contract sum, including this change order, will be $123,125.
Monthly changes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Redpath, second by Shields. Any questions?
Questions?
Yes.
Could you have Art elaborate on the change order?
Anytime that we bid tank, anytime that we bid tank removal and replacement, we always bid a number of items that we can potentially run into, whether it's testing of soil, whether it's the removal of rock by a mechanical method, whether it's blasted rock. Most recently, we have found, and many board members are aware of the fact that we hit rock at Montgomery. We've just had the blast for the fuel oil tank at Bridle Path. We've just blasted for stormwater piping at Walton Farm. And needless to say, we could not blast at Inglewood because of the proximity of the tank to the building. So we had to use
Solve everybody.
we had to use a mechanical method to remove the rock, and in doing that, we still had a bid that was some $18,000 lower than any other bid that we had. So it was something we had to do to get the tank in the ground.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item H, I recommend the approval to submit PlanCon Part H project financing for Bridle Path Elementary School to the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
So moved.
Motion by Shields, second by Whalen. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item I recommend the acceptance of the gifts to the district as listed.
So moved.
Motion by Shields, second by Whalen. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Page BA3, before I make a recommendation on the bids, I have a couple of amendments. We are rejecting the bus repair parts bid. That would be resubmitted again. And we are deferring the audiovisual equipment bid until next month. And so with those modifications, I recommend awarding the bids as amended.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Shields, second by Leahy. Questions?
Did you say both the bus tires and parts, or just parts?
Just the
Just the
parts.
bus repair parts we're rejecting.
Elaborate?
The library books, sidewalks, and bus tires and tubes stay.
Yes. And Mrs. Prokowski asked for an elaboration, Bill, I believe.
After evaluating the bids that came in, we were not certain that they were the best prices we could possibly get. We want to reevaluate that and put it out for bid again.
Other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item K, I recommend the nomination of the professional employees as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Michael, second by Shields. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item B, I recommend the nomination of the paraprofessional employees as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Shields, second by Halverstadt. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Page BA4, I recommend the nomination of the support staff as listed.
So moved.
Motion by Shields, second by Halverstadt. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I recommend the salary changes as listed.
So moved.
Motion by Shields, second by Halverstadt. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 3, I recommend the approval of the additions to the 93-94 professional and support staff substitute lists.
So moved.
Motion by Shields, second by Whalen. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 6, I recommend the approval of the additions, changes, and deletions to the extra duty assignments for the 93-94 school year.
So moved. Second. Motion by Shields, second by Halverson. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Page BA5, I recommend the student travel as listed on page BA5 and addendum page BAA1.
So
Oh,
moved.
excuse me, I apologize,
No,
that's
that's
staff
staff.
travel, I'll make that as a second recommendation. We'll just do student travel now.
So moved. Motion by Shields, second by Halverson. Questions?
A question on number 3 of clarification. It looks like that Phil Tackett will be attending all, and Don Klein will only be attending one. So just the way it should read, I think, is and Phil Tackett and/or Don Klein, to be correct?
Is that right, Don?
We can correct that, yeah. Okay.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Now, on BAA1 addendum, I recommend the staff travel as listed.
So moved.
Motion by Shields, second by Rechner.
Oh, my throat is.
We're on the addendum.
Questions?
First page, second page.
No,
I
no,
know,
she
I'm
doesn't want
just
to
having
break
trouble
it.
with voice.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
There is a vandalism report attached, and I would also like to report to the board that this week is American Education Week. It's the 72nd year that public education has been honored with American Education Week. We've had many hundreds of parents coming in and taking time off to show their support for our staff and our schools. We really appreciate the level of commitment and support from members of the community, and we thank them for coming in to see what we're doing in the classrooms. With that, I would conclude my report, Mrs. Davis.
Thank you, Dr. Alcala.
Somebody's called this
We'll
one.
move on to treasurer's report, Davis.
That's not mine.
For October,
Fred, turn off your pacemaker.
for October 1993, the report is as follows. We had cash receipts for the month of $6,072,234.50. Our receipts year to date, $65,266,360.06. Disbursements for the month, $8,670,417.96. Disbursements year to date, $26,838,956.33. We have term investments in the amount of $3 million and temporary investments in the amount of $40,194,000.
That's it to us.
Thank you, Dennis. And budget transfers?
I recommend approval of the budget transfers for the 93-94 fiscal year in the amount of $34,113.
So moved. Motion by Shields, second by Halverson. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And invoices.
I recommend approval of the sanction checks for the month of October in the amount of $10,738,700.34, and the approval of the disbursements for the month of November in the amount of $429,461.56.
So moved.
Motion by Shields, second by Halverson. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
You go
carries.
out first.
Thank you, Dennis. And Bill.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Pleased to be able to report to the board a profit for the month of October in the amount of
So early.
$8,288.91.
It's good news.
That's based on
We're into getting as much money as possible here.
based on a total income of $317,647.94 for the month. We do have a year-to-date operating deficit in the amount of $74,000, and as I noted to the board last month, we are still paying off expenses that were acquired from July 1 on. Typically takes until January 1 to work those down to a positive balance.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Great.
Solicitor's report, Charles.
I don't have a report, but I'd just like to make a comment. I commented earlier on the leadership of Mrs. Davis. But I also wish to comment on the other members of the board who are leaving. Tom Whalen, Pat Shields, Bill Halberstadt. These are people who I believe are not only people of integrity and professionalism. But what the community here doesn't know is what takes place in disciplinary meetings that the board has regarding the disposition of student infractions, student expulsions, and how we care for the students once that situation takes place. And the one thing that I was always amazed at and really gave me a lot of time to think about was the compassion. The compassion and care that was always demonstrated and evidenced in every single one of these cases by Tom Whalen, Pat Shields, and Bill Halberstadt. That is not to say that Donna Mangle and Dick and Mr. Carmen also, and other members, and Terry, who have since come on the board and have demonstrated their compassion in the disposition of these matters. But I could say over the many, many years that the members who are retiring from this board have participated in those hearings, particularly Tom Whalen, who chaired many of those hearings. Let me say to this community that they really care about what happens to every single one of these children, whether they are permitted to continue in this school or whether they are recommended for alternate placement because of serious infractions to the school policies and school requirements. And I think that's something the community ought to know, and something that's never said. And I wish to thank them for all the wonderful years that they've given to this board and working with me. And this evening at dinner, Dick Wood, who also felt kind of sorry, Dick's your bond counsel and has worked for many, many years with district, said to me, said, you know, when Pat Shields took over from Dottie Curry as chairman of the Finance Committee, he was amazed how she picked up so quickly and became so expert in addressing the financial needs of this district. And he made that point and singled her out, and I passed this on to each and every one of you who probably didn't know that before. So thanks again, Pat.
I was going to tell my husband.
Okay, thank you, Charles. And before adjournment, two announcements. There will be an executive session of the board tonight regarding potential litigation. And for those of you who may want to watch this meeting again, we now tape our meetings and show them.
Are you kidding?
The meeting will be aired tomorrow on Adelphia Cable 16 at 2 p.m. and Monday at 6 p.m. and also Monday at 2 p.m. on Suburban Cable Channel 9. And with that, do I have a motion for adjournment? Thanks for coming.
Okay.
existing funds so that they could get invested for longer term, since we now know
Exactly, that's my
that we would
point.
have
Right.
the 25 million coming in December, that 25 could be invested in November?
Yeah, I think if we were to do them all, say at the November 18th meeting, settlement for the Emmaus would be January 2nd, first business day of the month. If you were to take action yet in October, we could perhaps settle on December 1st. The Emmaus program can only make loans on the first business day of the month. So our two possibilities are to take action and have settlement by December 1, or take action and have settlement by January 2nd. You would pick up 1 month's worth of extra earnings. Off the top of my head, I'll say that's a $10,000, $20,000 kind of number.
Yeah, that's my thinking, is that, you know, if we're not encumbered by anything that causes us to have to wait till November, let's do it now and this month, decide what it is. I mean, those are pennies that we can save, and if, you know, looking at hundreds of thousands over 15 months, it seems to me that 20,000 is pretty close to about what we would save a month. Let's save 20 more thousand. Can you run the numbers in 10 days to do that, so that we can look at option 1 or 2?
Well, I think it is a $10,000 or $20,000 kind of number. It's just a matter of, we wanted to give you time to think about this. If
Yeah.
you want to proceed, that's up to you. We can do it faster.
Dick, let me just ask you, I think your question is, if the board votes to proceed with the Emmaus pool, forgetting when it settles and forgetting how long it takes to implement, can't we immediately implement the reinvestment program for the existing
Right.
25?
Yes, that's what I want to do first.
Take
Okay.
25
That's
million of the
30
money we
days
have.
you're
and
talking
invest
Exactly,
it.
exactly.
So we don't have to wait until the Emmaus bond pool closes to redirect the investment of our construction
Right.
fund to realize an extra month's interest income. I think that's your question.
That's what I'm trying to get started, get it started now, so that happens, and we have that money to invest before we.
Okay. I think the one fine point there, we just need to make sure that we have money available for whatever the next 30 or 45 days worth of draws are up to January 1st.
Does that affect our refinancing?
No, it
Shouldn't.
won't
Second
affect the
option.
refinance.
Just
Should
want
be,
to make sure.
yeah, it should be totally separate.
But, yes, so we can do that.
Good.
Question.
I'd favor that.
Question
Make sure you have money paid.
Which do we
Yeah,
favor, 1 or
question
2?
The question then becomes, for the board members, is option 1 or option 2? Are you willing to gamble and go for a higher interest rate over a longer period, hoping that we have the draws down to an exact science? You don't need additional money, or are you less likely to gamble and willing to or rather have more money available 2 years from now? That's the question. You want to gamble?
I'm willing to wait it and see what it is on the 1st of March in 1995. I think that's the smart way to go.
You'd rather take option 2?
I think the interest rates, even though we're starting over, are gonna be better than 3.5%. That's
I
my
think-
guess.
So you're in favor of option 2?
Option 2, that's what I'm in favor of.
Not knowing what's gonna come down the pike, you're better off
It ain't gonna be
going
less
with
than
option
3.5.
2, so that you at least are covering your bases if things should pick up in 95. It would be an easier way to handle it. So I certainly would go with option 2.
Tom?
2.
Ralph?
2.
Pat?
2 makes sense.
Pat?
2.
2. 2, 2, 2. Okay, we've got that settled. We'll go back to the first one.
That'll be on then
Yes,
for a
Glenn,
board
we-
vote
if
next
you can,
Thursday.
Dick and
Get
Glenn,
to come
for
visit us
next,
in 10 days. huh?
Provided that we
Thursday.
can
Thanks,
pay
guys.
the 2 months' interest.
Sure.
2
That
months.
we have- Well, we have to pay 2 months' interest, so provided that we have the money in our general fund to pay the interest for 2 months.
Right.
Right.
We just don't invest as much. If not, Donna can pay.
Do we have any,
Well, I think it's like $112,000.
do we have any questions?
A little
That's
hefty.
pretty great for somebody that's about to be fired from Martin Marietta.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
I'll write a check.
Yeah, questions from
Bill,
the
I just
audience?
had one more question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Dennis, where does this put us as far as the state's concerned about our bond issues and our limitations and things of that?
Oh, we're fine.
Okay.
We're still well under what the regulations are for our.
Even
borrowing.
provided some of the legislature that's coming up, we
That will
would
not-
still be
we're
within
still well
those
within the
guidelines?
limits.
Okay, thank you.
Now, we've directed Glenn on the second portion of his topic tonight, but we have to go back to the first one. Discuss either option 2 or option 3.
with respect to current refinance.
I'll say two.
Has everybody forgotten that? or-
Two.
Two.
No.
We can't get it.
So we got
I think in keeping with two and the other one.
Keeping with
the
two and the other one.
philosophy that we used for the second part,
That was lucky
then
two.
we would favor option two this part
Yeah.
too.
Okay, I would agree with that.
The two's
Two,
out.
Ralph?
Two.
On down the line then for
I
two?
thought we did this earlier.
All right, well, we said we'd come back to this and
Just so
finalize it.
Mr. Potash and I know what our marching orders are, we will prepare a resolution for your consideration next Thursday that would authorize the implementation of option two for both the refunding of the Series A of 1992 bonds and option two with respect to the cash management construction program for the Emmaus bond.
Our authority in October doesn't affect when you go to the market to sell them, so we gain the 94 benefit, okay.
Now, wait a minute, the resolution on the bonds, the Series A of 92, we don't do until November?
I'm talking about the board action authorizing us to go ahead and proceed to implement it. Then we would look to November 18th
For final action?
for final action on as much as what we can get done between now and the 18th.
Great.
All right, so we will see you next Thursday and again then towards the end of November.
Dennis, by next Thursday, I would like to have the breakdown on the gross monies, all the fees and issuance fees. I'm more than morbidly curious as to how much everybody gets.
Do we need Glenn and Dick next Thursday for you to take action on the resolution?
I don't think so. Just Charles.
Save you a trip.
Unless you have some more money.
Charlie, because they can find some more money.
Charles can handle it.
You love when you come. You always
Thank you,
bring us
gentlemen.
good
Thank you
Yes.
very much. Every time you come here, it's good news.
news. Thanks, guys.
On that happy note, Pat, it's the end of finance.
Okay, Bill, keep saving us money.
Yes, it is.
Okay, we will move then on to curriculum. Pat?
Yes, the first item on our curriculum agenda is the RIF, Reading is Fundamental, and I believe Mr. Keffer is going to address that.
This is the third year that we ask the board's approval to participate in Reading is Fundamental. Reading is Fundamental is a nonprofit organization whose purpose is to promote literacy. And one of their primary ways of doing this is to encourage school districts to establish partnerships with business and industry for the purpose of raising funds which go to pay for books which are distributed to children. In North Penn, what that means specifically is that we have slightly more than 1,000 first graders, and for a contribution on the board's part of $2,500 to match a $2,500 contribution by United Gas Improvement, who has a subsidiary, AmeriGas in Phelpsville, we would be able to 3 times this year have an activity that promotes reading with the first graders, and each time, each first grader would get to select a book which becomes their personal possession. We have had great success with this in the 2 prior years. We think that some 3,000 books to distribute to children is a good buy for $2,500. So we ask your approval to participate.
Any questions from the board on this?
Just a quick one. Charlie, on the agreement itself, it says books purchased with these funds will be made available for pre-selection and ownership by the children served. You'll
Yes.
actually get to keep the books?
Each child gets 3 books,
Okay.
and they keep those.
Neat program.
It is very
It
neat.
it is
Thank you.
money well spent. Are there any questions from the audience on this, the RIP program? Okay, that brings us to number 2. We will be receiving the report of the Citizens Task Force for realigning the elementary boundary areas. I believe this is the agenda that has brought so many new faces to our board meeting. I'd like to thank you all for coming out, and I would like to reiterate that there will be 4 opportunities to speak on this matter. We will have the meeting on the 26th, which is at Gwinnett Square Elementary School, not Gwinnett, okay? 26th at Gwinnett Square, the 28th at Montgomery. In addition, you will also be able to speak at the November committee meeting and the November board meeting. At the time we present this for the public meetings at Gwinnett Square and Gwinnett, we will have people available taking notes. When you do a massive redistricting like this, it's a very emotional topic. And as you see what happens when you press the balloon in on one, one side, how it comes out on the other. We will have people available to take your recommendations and suggestions down so that we can address them at another meeting. I want to give you a little background on the task force. It started meeting in August of this year. It has representatives from 11 elementary schools, 2 of our elementary principals, Mr. Keffer as the head of elementary education, Judy Clark as special ed, our new student services, and myself as board liaison. Now, when Dr. Alco gave the charge to the task force, he pointed out 5 things he would like them to do. First was to suggest guidelines for realigning elementary attendance areas. Second, to provide advice to the administration in developing a plan for the realignment of attendance areas. Third, to review the plan prior to its recommendation to the superintendent and the board of school directors. Fourth, we needed to provide for attendance at community listening meetings and review input received. And fifth, to assist in presentations of the recommendations to the board of school directors. As we began our work, we were confronted with several facts which were indisputable. First, we had to take into consideration the board's plan that was, I think it was 91, when we decided to move the 6th graders back to elementary school. Now this means there will be an additional 900 students in the elementary schools. Second, you all know, God willing, we have, in 1994, we have 2 new 30-room elementary schools going online, Walton Farm and Bridle Path. And third, as the PEL and everybody riding around can see, we have to provide for future growth. All right? With these facts, our complicated process of realignment began. The process was not easy, but members maintained a strong belief that any plan must be one which benefits the needs of the whole system and not any specific neighborhoods. We worked under the premise that each elementary school should open next fall with a reasonable number of children and an allowance for future growth. Each decision regarding one attendance boundary had an impact on the other. The ripple effect was clear. This has been a thoughtful process. What will be presented tonight represents what the group feels is most equitable, reasonable, and a workable solution. With 18 people contributing, we have tried to consider many possibilities and many variations. And that's not to say that through these public input meetings, one of you may come up with a better plan. We're anxious to hear it. I want to personally thank all those who served with me on the task force, and I would like to introduce them to you now. We're fortunate to have many of them in attendance also tonight. So if you just stand, Lynn Abrams is here, and Lynn is president of Gwynnor Home and School. Representing Oak Park Home and School as its president, Ellen Allen. A.M. Culp, Allison Brick. Kathy DeVita, who is co-president of Knapp Home and School. Chris Duffy, which is Hatfield's Home and School president. Letitia Erickson, representing Montgomery as their president. Sharon Ivanek, Nash's Home and School president. Georgia Fiano, who is co-president of Nash. Debbie Grubby, president of York Avenue. Linda Mayer. Okay, Linda. And Linda's representing Gwynedd Square Home and School. Peggy McCormick from North Wales, as well as Mr. Schickling, principal of Englewood, Mr. Sugar, principal of North Wales, and Barb Sakrisky, co-president of Knapp Home and School. All right. Thank you all. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jan Fisher, a member of the task force who will continue the presentation. Jan is president of Englewood Home and School. Jan?
It is the responsibility of our committee to develop an elementary attendance realignment plan. To accomplish this task, we felt it was necessary to establish some guidelines to develop a proposed plan. The guidelines were as follows: proximity to schools, class size, future growth, space needed for specials such as art, music, and special education programs. And finally, minimizing the movement of our young people. The district used a computer program that generated data to develop the proposed elementary school boundaries, including the new bridle path and the Walton Farm schools. Proximity to the schools was one of the key factors considered. The committee felt it was important to maintain the current class size guidelines of not more than 25 students in K through 3 and not more than 28 students in grades 4 and 5. The plan we propose tonight fully achieves that guideline. Looking beyond current enrollment, allowances had to be made, of course, for future growth. Available data indicates that North Penn's elementary school enrollment will continue to grow. We also recognize the need to provide classroom space for art, music, and special education programs to the degree possible at this time. We were able to provide adequate space for special education and gifted programs in each school. However, it is not possible to provide classrooms for art and music in all of our schools. Some art and music teachers will still move from classroom to classroom with carts. Finally, we are all keenly aware of the need to minimize the movement of our children. However, in order to put 2 new schools into service, to provide space for 6th graders in each school, and to provide some growing space for our new students, it was necessary to propose moving approximately 1,530 students of the K through 6 population of approximately 6,900 students. Approximately 1,280 of those 1,530 students proposed to be transferred will go to the new schools, Bridle Path and Walton Farms. We believe that the plan proposed tonight reflects the guidelines I have just reviewed. And now I will turn the presentation over to Mr. Kepper.
Thank you, Jan. You should have a map in your possession, and I would like to use the map to present the task force's plan this evening. You should also have a copy of the proposal, which is labeled preliminary proposal for realigning attendance areas. Let me suggest that you take the packet you received and turn to page 4, because periodically as I make this presentation, I intend to refer to it. First, I want to emphasize something that Mr. Field said, that this was a complex process, and designing attendance areas that meets the needs of the total district is a little bit like pulling on one leg of a spider web. What you pull on one side has a ripple effect throughout the entire thing, and I think it's critically important to keep that in mind as we go through, and I think you will see quickly how it has impacted all of the schools in the district except one. York Avenue attendance area will not be affected. That is true for a variety of reasons. First, because it's very compact. Secondly, because it is not subject to a great amount of growth. It is fully built out. I doubt that there's more than 1 or 2 vacant building lots in that entire area. The growth that we experience at York Avenue periodically comes when homes that are owned by older people who have raised their families decide to move away, and those homes are good values. They're bought by younger families. We have watched that phenomenon for a number of years. With that exception, this plan does impact in some way on every other existing attendance area. I would like to say that the new attendance areas are outlined in heavy black lines. The schools are all identified, including Bridle Path and Walton Farm. And you will notice that there are a number of areas that are also outlined in red. Any area outlined in red is an area that is proposed to be moved to an attendance area different from the one that it currently is involved with. You will also notice that there are 5 areas that are shaded in gray. And I will talk about that as we go through this plan, but basically the gray shading indicates an area that was involved in the attendance area changes that the board made for the opening of the 91-92 area. So those 5 areas are in fact experiencing a second change, and I will address that as we proceed as well. The other numbers that you see identifying the areas that are involved in the change are numbered from 1 through 19. I did that because I felt it would expedite the presentation in that it's far easier to turn your attention to area 1 than it is to say each time what the parameters of that are. You can read that for yourself. First, the major cause of realignment of the attendance areas, there are 3. The 2 new schools, obviously, the idea that we need to create space in every elementary school for grade 6. That means that at least 2 rooms, in some cases 3, and in other schools 4, had to be provided to retain the 5th graders at the end of the year for grade 6. So it really amounts to either some shrinkage within each attendance area to accommodate that additional grade level, or it means a realignment. Very frequently, what has happened, it causes a domino effect. You gain space in one school by moving children out. There are several times to another school. There are several times in this plan where it appears a little bit unusual because we are moving children out of a given school and at the same time we're moving other children in. And I will address the reasons for that as we go. And then of course the third reason that's bringing all this about is clearly the Economy League studies and other data would indicate that our growth is not yet over. We will continue to grow. We do not wish to participate in this process and have to do this again in the very near future. Frankly, I hope it's the last time that I will ever have to engage in this process. We will see. I'd like now to ask you to turn your attention to the lower right corner of your map, the attendance area for the Bridle Path School. Clearly, keeping the concept of proximity in mind, the committee first decided that obviously the territory closest in to the Bridle Path School should go here, and that's designated as Area 1. That area presently goes to the Montgomery School. It would remove 168 youngsters through what will next year be grades 1 to 5 from the Montgomery attendance area. In addition to all that, there will be kindergarten youngsters from all of these areas that will be involved. But obviously, we won't know what that number is until we register in March. For our planning purpose, we have made an assumption, which we make every year in planning future sections and staffing, and that is the assumption always has been that the kindergarten will approximate the present one. That's the most reasonable thing to do for planning purposes. We also looked at Area 2, which also comes from the Montgomery attendance area. There are 92 students in that area, so it means that we are removing nearly 300 youngsters from the Montgomery attendance area. We know from our past experience that that is the most rapidly growing area. We know from the most recent Economy League study that would indicate that probably 1 out of every 4 new houses will be built in Montgomery Township. That has implications for the Montgomery School. It has some implications for the Bridle Path School. It has some implications under this plan for the Gwynn North School as well. Area 3 means that 156 youngsters who currently attend the Knapp School would go to Bridle Path. I think it's fairly clear when you look at the approximate location to Bridle Path why the task force would look at that area. Area 4 contains 82 youngsters. Prior to 1991, that area attended the Montgomery School. In 1991, we changed that to the Gwynn North School, and we are now proposing that go to the Bridle Path School again for two basic reasons. First, it's very close to the Bridle Path School. It's a logical move. Second, we need to reduce the number of students in the Gwynn North School, and we are doing that in several ways. This is the first of those moves. It is necessary to say that there are still 30 youngsters in that particular section that were affected in 1991. Those youngsters are now in grades 3, 4, and 5. Next year they will be in 4, 5, and 6. So it's important to recognize that 30 youngsters would have been at Montgomery and then moved on to the Gwynn North School, and now in fact will be asked to move to the Bridle Path School. That's the significance of the shape. So that's 30 of the 82 that currently reside. Others that were involved in that move in 1991 have passed on into the secondary schools. Some have moved away in the meantime as well. I didn't mean they passed on, I meant. I think I said they passed on.
Yes. Passed through the system.
You understood. So that the fifth area is currently part of the cult attendance area. There are 75 youngsters in that area, and we would propose to bring them also to the Bridle Path School. So if you refer to page 4 in the packet, you see a chart which I will refer to several times, but what that does, it gives us approximately 659, 660 youngsters. We think that is a reasonable number of students in that building. It can hold more than that, and I will later talk about the capacities and what we have yet to grow in that particular building. Item 6 is the small area. It's the Montgomery Commons Shopping Center, and there's some townhouses. We would propose to change that from that to the Gwynn North School. It involves 7 youngsters. If we then go to number 7, I just indicated that we took a significant portion of the NAP attendance area. Roughly 1/3 of the youngsters currently in that building will go to Bridle Path. If we do not address that situation, it means that the NAP school would be seriously underutilized. And we propose to deal with that by moving Area 7 from Oak Park. There are 89 youngsters in that area. We would not further than alter the CULP attendance area, nor would we alter the Oak Park attendance area to the south. We will do a little bit more with that in the north. There is a very small area, Huntington Lane, which has been a part of the CULP attendance area for probably 30 years or more. This is the first year we believe there are no children living there. This is a good time to straighten that out. And that's all that is. I've waited for that for a long time. It doesn't make sense because the children either have to be bused to the CULP school, or they risk running across the road because they don't wait for the bus in years when we've had them. And we do not think that's a desirable situation. It's very, I'm sorry?
Across Cowpath?
Yes, ma'am. And this is an opportunity, an ideal time, we think, to correct the potential problem.
Great.
I'd like then to move on to Area 8. I indicated before that we wanted to reduce enrollment somewhat by taking Area 4 out of the Gwynn North attendance area. And in Area 8 means that there are 87 youngsters that would be transferred from the Gwynn North School to the Gwinnett Square School. What that does, it means that we in fact can accommodate slightly less than 500 youngsters in the Gwen North School, and we gain the room spaces that we need to accommodate grade 6. It also does free up some additional areas which have been needed there for many years. Area 9 proposes moving 64 students from the North Wales School also to the Gwinnett Square School. And the rationale behind that is that we again need that room space to accommodate grade 6. That would bring the North Wales building to about 495 youngsters. And as I will talk about in greater detail, you can see the plan to accommodate all the programs that we need to deal with in that building. I mentioned earlier that this sort of has a domino effect, and I think you've already seen that to some degree in what I'm presenting at the moment. If you then look at the Walton Farm attendance area for a minute, I want to skip some of those areas and come back to them in a moment because I think it's more logical. If you look at the location of Walton Farm, you see that Area 16 surrounds it. That area currently attends school at Inglewood. There are 318 children in that area. That is 2/3 of the current Inglewood population. Clearly, if we evacuate that many children from Inglewood, it means the Inglewood attendance area presently existing is very small. We would have relatively few youngsters there. And proximity, obviously, in Area 16 is the issue. As we do that, we then also need to look at Area 17, take some pressures off of the Hatfield School. Area 17 proposes to move 70 youngsters from Hatfield to Walton Farm. Again, it's contiguous territory, it's proximate. We also propose to take 18 more out of the to take Area 18, which is 59 more students from Hatfield, and add them to Walton Farm. That would bring the Hatfield School to 673. Still a significant number.
Charlie, what about 19?
And Area 19, Donna, is coming from Oak Park. There are 58 youngsters there. So if you take that Area 19 from Oak Park, and you take with 58 youngsters, and you take Area 7 from Oak Park with 89, it does what we need to do to provide space at Oak Park for 6th grade, and it gives us approximately 485. I say approximately again and again because there's a margin of error in this data, I will tell you up front, somewhere between 1% and 2%. When you do this with the computer, the computer is never quite where we are because you process registrations and withdrawals. And they roll that over. They don't roll that over every day. So it is off. But I would suggest to you that 1 or 2%, given the number of classrooms and sites that we operate, it's not significant as a planning document. But if anyone were to go across these columns, they will not always add up precisely to the number.
Charlie, a point of clarification on between Oak Park and Inglewood. Welsh Road is the divider there, right? I don't think the maps show that.
It is the dividing line. Right.
Is yours heavy there or light?
What I then want to do is also talk about Area 15, which currently goes to the Nash School. That's a lot of territory. There are only 5 children that are there. In Area 15. And the same is true in Area 14. There are only 7 youngsters there. That area was transferred from Inglewood in 1991, and of that 7, 5 were transferred in 1991.
Charlie, some of these larger areas where there seems to be few kids coming out, is there a considerable density of private school students in those neighborhoods, or is there an
It's
explanation?
sparsely populated, and in the one case, in Area 15, it's the Turnpike, and it's that retirement community that's there, Donna.
All right, thank you.
Having done that now, I'd like to turn my attention to the remainder of the Inglewood attendance area, because it relates to Inglewood and Gwinnett Square. We find it necessary at this point to recommend that areas 10, 11, 12, and 13, which are currently part of the Gwinnett Square attendance area, move to the Inglewood area. Because recall that I said we were taking 318 youngsters out of it. It would be seriously underutilized. So we looked at all of the contiguous areas and said, from a geographical and a numbers standpoint, first, what makes sense? This seemed to the task force to make a great deal of sense, despite the fact that it does involve moving those youngsters again. And I want to point out that in Area 10, there are a total of 61 youngsters. 17 of those were involved in the move in 1991 from the Gwynnor attendance area to Gwinnett Square. Area 11 contains 26 youngsters, and 19 of those were involved in the move from York Avenue in 1991. Area 12 contains 33 children, 10 of whom were involved in the move in 1991 from Inglewood. And Area 13 contains 74 students, 26 of whom were involved in the move from Nash in 1991.
Charlie, do you have the grade levels of these?
Yes, I do. May I suggest that if we could do the whole
Yes.
thing,
Yeah.
it might expedite it, and I'll be more than willing to answer all your questions. We know that this is probably going to make some people unhappy. Not probably, we know that there are some people who are unhappy about that. I've received a number of letters, phone calls, have spoken to several people, have conducted a few conferences over the matter. I think it's very important for the board and the community to keep in mind that the reason we built the Gwinnett Square School and opened it in 1991 is because we had serious problems in the northern end of the school district. We had problems at Nash, we had problems at Inglewood, we had problems at York, we had some problems at Gwynnor, North Wales, and other places. We had to move those students at that time to keep class sizes reasonable. And we believe that class size was a primary value of parents in this community. Unfortunately, we have continued to grow. And because we have grown, we have found it necessary to build 2 new schools, to reorganize the school district to handle it, and clearly that necessitates another move. If we had had Walton Farm at that time, we would probably have done what we're looking at now in the first place. But the reality of it is, we had no idea in 1991 that there was going to be a Walton Farm. And so I think that is what has led us to this. So basically, that is the attendance area proposal. If you would look at the chart on page 4, I would ask everyone to keep in mind that this is a planning document. This numbers on this page change by the day, and they will continue to change until next September. We will have somewhat different numbers of students in all probability for a variety of reasons, move-ins, move-outs, whether this plan is finally the one that's adopted. But what we did, we took the total number of students at any grade level, and if I might just use the Bridle Path School as an example, we don't know what the kindergarten is going to be, so we made the assumption, as we traditionally do, that it will be the same as first grade. as this year's kindergarten. So that would be 97 as we pulled all that together. It looks as though there are 97 first graders. We used the class size guidelines of not more than 25 for K through 3. And that second column in every case represents the number of classrooms it will take to house this population. When we get to grades 4, 5, and 6, the upper limit of the class size guidelines suggests 28, so we have used that number to determine the number of sections. The next line down talks about a number of special ed classes that we have across the district. They are housed in certain specific schools, but they serve the entire district. I think the board is well aware that we do not have enough children in any of those categories to have a class in each building, so we pool those for the system as a whole. But they do require room space. We then came up with the total number of rooms and students that this plan proposes be housed in every building. We also know that we have learning skills part-time programs. When you see at the case of Bridle Path, half there and half after gifted, as you will see for Gwinnett Square and Walton, it simply means that we built some classrooms there in new facilities with movable walls. That's a typical 850, I think I'm right about that, square foot classroom, Art. And we anticipated that these are classes that have a limited number of youngsters, so it seemed to make sense to be able to divide those spaces, and that's what that means. In cases at Bridle Path, there would be an art room and a music room under this proposal. That would remain so only as long as we can adequately house the K-6 population, the learning skills population, the gifted. If it requires the creation of another section or two, then we would do what we have historically done. Those are our safety valves. Those are our cushions. Those rooms could be withdrawn. As you look across to other schools, you will see clearly that it was not possible to provide an art and a music room in every building. In the case where you see under Hatfield that the learning skills program and the gifted program, there's a 0 in SEM, it means that we are not devoting a full-size classroom to that, but there are smaller seminar spaces that will adequately serve those needs. The net result of all that is, in the second to last column, you see the classrooms that are needed under this plan, and you will then see in the last line the classrooms that are available. And I think it is interesting to note that we are only going to have 2 classrooms in the entire system next year that will not be used. One will be at Bridle Path, the other would be at Walton Farm, and if I were a betting man, I would say by the time we get there, we will use them for something. It may very well be that by the time we get to this, we will have to move some of these other programs that are movable, such as the pre-first grade program. It houses children for 1 year from all over the system. If we were pressed, it may or may not be at the Walton Farm School because we can move that interchangeably. If you go back and look at the total numbers of students, keep in mind that we indicated one of the things we wanted to do was to allow for future growth. We do not want to go through this process again and again and again. I would like to say that we would not go through this ever. Realistically, that's a commitment I don't think any of us would ever make. And I would say very clearly to this community, there can never be a promise, because you only promise if you're absolutely sure that you can deliver. We can't say that this will never happen again. The question of how many youngsters can you put in a school very frequently arises, and it's a reasonable question. The answer is really dependent upon how one uses the rooms that are in a school. And if I could use the column labeled Gwyn Nor as an example, what that means is that for every classroom that you devote to primary students K to 3, you can put up to 25 children in it according to our guidelines. For every classroom that you devote to 4, 5, and 6 under our guidelines, you can put 28 in it. If I use those numbers in the Gwynn North School, I could say that in those 2 rooms that are devoted to kindergarten, we could in fact house 20 more youngsters, because each kindergarten serves 25 in the morning, 25 in the afternoon. For first grade with 80, we can also serve 20 additional students. In second grade, we can serve 13 more to get us to 75, which is the 3 full sections. In fourth grade, we could serve 27 more youngsters to get us to 84, which is 3 times the 28. The same thing is true in grade 5. We can serve 25 more, and we could serve 16 more in grade 6. What all this means is that given that breakdown of classes, given the emotional support classes that are there, we could serve, in addition to the 496 that will be there, we could serve 132 more if every seat in every room were filled. So that I think you can see, if another year we took out the special ed classes and made those 2 4th grades or 2 5th grades, that would change that capacity number. As it would change if there were more intermediate classes one year and fewer primary. It's a floating number, and I know sometimes the community gets a little bit concerned because in different years we say the buildings can hold different numbers of children, but that's the reality of it. It really does depend on how you use the building. If one were to use that system and go across, you would see that the difference between the numbers that we project to be there and the numbers that you could put there ranges from about 79%, about 73% to about 88, 89% in different schools as you go across. And what that suggests to us is that we can provide for future growth under this plan. We have allowed for more space in some schools than in others, where we could. And we did that in the schools that serve any part of Montgomery Township because we know that 1 in 4 future homes will be in that township. We also made allowances in some of the schools in the northern end of the system because the Economy League studies, the board would indicate that there will be growth to come in Tillmanson Township. It's not perfect, but that was our effort to try to address that particular problem. If one looks at art and music rooms, it further impacts on the capacity for any given building. Clearly, the Gwynn North School is projected to have an art and music room. If we were to convert those to classrooms for primary grades, that's 50 more youngsters. And we have done that. If it were 2 intermediate grade classes, it goes up slightly, it's 56. So that I think if there's anyone who's interested in where is the future growth and how do you come up with the capacity, I thought it was necessary to run you through that exercise that explains it depends on how you use the rooms. I think that probably covers all that we need to say about the plan, and I would be happy, Pat, to answer the board's questions.
Well, basically, I think we're going to use the same rules for the board as we use for the audience of citizens. This was a presentation. Moving 1,500 children is a lot to digest. I suggest that the board go over this. If they have any questions, to call Judy or Mr. Kepper. And we have several more meetings. Thank you. As you can see, it is. We were not underestimating. We say this is a massive realignment. It is. Okay. Item number 3 on our curriculum is the high school program of study changes. And I believe Mr. Denimer.
John, you better give us a chance to refold the map.
This will be our Bible for the next.
Yeah, Dad. I would have complimented him publicly had you not tell us to shut up. We could have commented, not asked questions.
You got it.
She wanted to jump into the gun. You saw a graph you got turned on. That's why she put it short.
Dick, she did that before you pulled out your statistical.
Before he saw him.
Actually, if you look at
We still have a few
the
things on the
areas
agenda from the executive.
square foot wise or square miles wise, the bigger schools are taking in the bigger areas. And it makes a lot of sense to do that.
Sounds very military.
Now that we've all regrouped, okay. Don, are we ready for our high school program of studies? I know we have some tech prep courses and a couple of upgrades here. Okay, let's start on the next
I have no maps for you to open or to share with you, but I do have a graph, a chart in your packet. For board members, it's two separate sheets. For those of you in the audience, there is a sheet that describes the high school program of studies. In the back of that, there are two charts that I'll be referring to as I progress through my presentation tonight. There's two topics that I want to discuss with you. First of all, I'd like to present an overview of our secondary instructional program for the purpose of giving you a perspective on the offerings we have in grades 7 through 12. And then second, to review the changes to the 1994-95 high school program of studies. Typically this time of the year I present secondary program of study changes for your review, but because we are still involved in our grade reorganization process, changes to middle school, junior high program of studies will be discussed in November. So we'll focus on the high school, and as I mentioned first, an overview on our instructional programs in the secondary schools. Just to briefly do this, I'd like to point out that our instructional programs in the secondary schools are designed to provide instruction that addresses really two aspects. First of all, the various ability levels of our students, and secondly, the goals and interests that students have along with their parents as they make decisions about course selections as they move through the grades. As far as ability levels are concerned, we accommodate the ability levels of our students by providing courses in special education, gifted, and of course we challenge all the other students at different course levels in many subjects. In order to meet the wide variety of goals and interests that students have as they progress through the secondary school years, we provide an increasingly wide variety of course offerings from which students can choose. Eventually, as students move through high school years, the opportunities for choice increase as they move through the grades. And at this point, I'd like to refer you to the graph that says at the top, a comparison of secondary programs by grade level. You can all find that. It will take a little bit of explanation in order for you to understand the information that I have here. If you look on the left-hand side of the graph, you'll see that it increases from 0 to 48. 48 represents the total number of instructional periods, or total number of periods that would exist in an 8-period day, which we have in our middle, junior, and senior high, and that reflecting our 6-day cycle that we use to schedule students. Instead of a 5-day week, we use a 6-day cycle, and any of you who have secondary age students know about A, B, C, D, E, or F day. So if you multiply 6-day cycle times 8 periods, there are 48 available periods in each grade level. Now 6 of those meet the basic need of lunch. So you can see at the very top of the chart, if you look down the right-hand side, I'll explain the terms that are used there. 6 of those periods from the space 42 through 48 represent lunch periods. The remaining 42 periods in the cycle
refer to instructional time. And that instructional time is divided into 3 categories. The categories in the gray shaded area are periods of required subjects. In the diagonal line section, required periods of elective subjects. And at the top, the dark black area are for pure electives or study halls. As you look across the grades, and I'll talk about each grade in a moment, you can see that there are gradual changes as students move through the system. The 7th grade program consists almost exclusively of periods of required subjects. Your English, science, social studies, math, and developmental reading are the requirements as far as major subjects are concerned, but there also are exploratory programs in physical and other requirements in physical education, health, art, practical arts, which are home ec and tech ed or industrial arts as it's been formerly known, and computer literacy. The only diagonal space in the 7th grade years is devoted to the only choices that 7th grade students have, and that is whether they want to take band, chorus, orchestra, or general music. So as you can see, 7th grade is very structured. As students move into the junior high school, there's a little bit more opportunity for electives to take place. However, 30 of their periods are required for their major subjects of English, social studies, science, and math, and in addition, physical education, health, and related fine arts are also required of 8th and 9th graders. There remains then 8 periods available in the student's schedule for them to make some choices. Take an additional major subject, each major subject taking up 6 periods of the instructional cycle, and other elective opportunities. You'll notice across the top, the electives or study halls are pure electives that students can make decisions about with their parents to either take additional credits or additional courses or, in some cases, study halls. And we do have a minimum standard requirement for all students in grades 8 through 12, and that is that everyone must select at least 38 instructional periods of instruction every single year. So the darkened area represents the difference between 38, which would be the required component, and elective opportunities. Many of our students take a full course load of 42 periods, but there are opportunities there for minor elective choices or for study halls. That number of minimum instructional periods, by the way, has increased in the past years, and in fact, we gradually increased it probably over the past 10 years. We originally required a minimum of 36, and we've raised that, I believe, in 1990 to 38. So that means that we have fewer students in study halls and more students in instructional class time. You'll notice that 8th and 9th grade are essentially the same. However, in 9th grade is the beginning of the secondary student's career in which they need to earn credits towards graduation. Our graduation requirements expect that students will earn a minimum of 21 credits over the period from grade 9 through grade 12. So we do assign credits to all the courses from grades 9 through 12, and students must earn them in the major disciplines and physical education, health, and arts and humanities. There are also additional electives that students can choose. Once they move into the high school, the number of elective opportunities increases slightly in grades 10 and 11, but essentially the number of required courses is about the same. And finally, in 12th grade, they have met most of the required subjects, and there's a lot more elective opportunities. The diagonal line section in grade 12 represents roughly 24 periods of instruction, which is the equivalent of many more major subjects. We require that all seniors take English and social studies, physical education, that's represented in the gray area. The diagonal section allows for at least 3 additional major subjects from which they can choose in our variety of opportunities that exist. I think at this point, if you think of this graph as a representation of change and progress regarding opportunities for selection, that's one of the things that we certainly wanted to portray in the graph that's here for you to look at. There is a second chart in your pack. For those of you in the audience, it's simply on the back of the paper that you have. And for the board, there's a separate sheet that's headed Selected Department Enrollments. Because we have such a wide variety of ability levels and goals, students and parents select courses based on future plans and interests. As an example of how ability levels and goals are addressed, I wanted to show you some selected departments, those departments that are not typically considered academic in nature, but are opportunities and programs that we have at our high school that students can take advantage of. The section in the diagonal line portion of the previous graph really is a period of, this represents some of the opportunities that students have to select courses in those sections. The 8 departments that I've listed there, I've chosen, as I mentioned, because in science and in math and English and social studies, essentially 100% of our population are taking courses there. However, in these departments, where the requirements don't exist regarding the opportunities or the courses that they must take, the numbers are somewhat different. But I found that looking at enrollment patterns over the years, and in particular 93, 94, that the numbers are somewhat interesting. For example, you can see in the middle column the number of students who elect courses in the art department is about 800 students. This really represents about 35% of our student body electing art courses. In business education, foreign language, you can also get a sense of the numbers of students who elect courses in these programs. You can also see the breakdown for the remainder of the courses here, including technology ed, which is the new term that we use for industrial arts, formerly industrial arts, our work study and career study programs that are primarily opportunities for 11th and 12th graders, and our VOTEC program, which is available for students in grades 10 through 12. So that represents a little bit of a picture regarding the secondary programs, and at this point I'd like to focus then on the program of studies for the high school. If you have questions after I've gone through the rest of the piece, we can talk about the overview and program of studies and plans. Before I get into the actual course changes that are being recommended for next year, I wanted to talk a little bit about an initiative that many of the board members are familiar with, but I felt would be helpful to expand upon a little bit as we consider the addition of courses in a new program that we're in the process of developing and operating. There's been many changes recently at North Montco, our vocational technical school. Some of those changes have related to the cluster concept that many board members are familiar with, and also the North Montco is involved in the technical preparation initiative, as we are as well. In fact, we're working very closely with North Montco in the development of the Tech Prep initiative. And I want to talk a little bit about Tech Prep because the majority of our changes, the most significant ones, are related to that program. At different times during this recent year, Ms. Mengel and Bill Halberstadt and Mr. Redcamp have talked about some of the improvements that have been made at North Montco. And of course, we at North Penn High School are working together with the faculty at North Montco to bring forth the Tech Prep program that is in your packet and described there. There are about 60% of our high school students that are pursuing a 4-year college prep curriculum. Another 12% are being trained in vocational technical programs at North Monco. That leaves about 28% of our students which represents about 600 students in grades 10 through 12, that earn credits towards a diploma, but really don't have a very specific set of post-graduation plans or goals. And that number is somewhat alarming. The Tech Prep program, the Tech Prep initiatives that are going on not only in North Penn, but across Pennsylvania and even much of the country, is a program that's designed to address the needs of that population. Tech Prep is a career preparation program, and at the same time, it represents a course of study or a sequence of courses that are designed to meet the needs for high school graduates to have a more technically oriented set of skills and to help prepare those students for advanced associate degrees in community colleges or technical schools, and even in some cases to give them opportunities to move into four-year programs down the road. However, we're very concerned about this particular population, and along with North Monco and the consortium of Montgomery County Community College, Penn State Ogon's campus, we are working towards developing programs that will enable our students to be prepared to enter technical training, further technical training after high school, generally in two-year programs. I have listed in the packet some of the goals of the Tech Prep initiative. Obviously, in order for students to go on to post-secondary training, there needs to be improved academic skills in math, English, and science. We feel that we will be addressing that. We will increase, hopefully, the number of graduates who go on to post-secondary training, and we hope that this is a better direction to take to prepare students for the workforce that exists and that probably we don't prepare them well enough for at the moment. Now, some things have been happening at North Penn. At the high school, we have offered, for the past 4 years, a course called Principles of Technology, and also in our Technology Ed department, and also a course called Applied Economics, which is a business elective opportunity. In those two courses, we now attract about 150 students. In addition to those course offerings, we also have had a team of teachers at the high school who've been working with a selected group of vocational and as in the past known as general students in grades 10 through 12. We have also been involved in planning the initiative and program with staff members from North Monco. The things that we have been doing are really the starting stages in an ultimate hope to have a Tech Prep program that will attract and accommodate all of our students that are in this 28 to 30%. As far as 1994-95 is concerned, we'll really be recommending courses that will continue our movement towards a Tech Prep program. There's an overall site team that consists of parents, business leaders, high school and junior high school administrators, teachers, and counselors that are all working together to help define this program and to develop it to its fullest potential. Ultimately, we envision that Tech Prep will be a program that may accommodate students actually from grades 8 through 12 and will develop a sequence of applied courses that will integrate vocational subjects in all of these grade areas. I would suspect that we will have developed the very near future, within a year or so, the sequence of courses that students will take as early as 8th grade, carry all through their high school years that prepares them for additional training and preparation in technical skill areas once they leave high school. So in order to begin that, our recommendations for the program of studies changes represent 3 new Tech Prep courses that I'll talk to you about briefly, 2 in the science department and 1 in technology ed. So if you can look at your green sheet in the section identified as courses to be added, Roman numeral 1, there are 2 science courses that we're introducing, applied biology and applied chemistry. The term applied, incidentally, is a term that's very common to tech prep courses, and it really refers to a practical application of skills that lead to further technical training, and the concepts of practical application are the ones that are most important and reflected here in these 2 courses. They're offered at level 4.0. They are 1-credit courses that would be available to these students. You can see there the description and the rationale for each of these 2. On the second page, the 3rd course of the tech prep nature is a follow-up or second-level course in Principles of Technology. Principles of Technology is an applied physics course I mentioned earlier, a course that deals with concepts that are listed there in the area of physics, but in applied sense, they're most appropriate for students who could pursue technical careers and further technical training. We feel that there is certainly enough information to be taught and enough interest to justify the addition of a second level of this course. We have about 55 students taking it in this level. We have had the first level of the course for about 4 years. These 3 courses then represent the ground floor of the eventual development of a sequence of courses for tech prep. The 4th new course that we're proposing for next year grew from the recommendations of the gifted task force that were presented to the board last June. The course listed on page 2, entitled Interdisciplinary English/Social Studies, is a 2-credit course that really integrates the concepts that are taught in 10th grade English and 10th grade Social Studies. All of the students who would take this course would be responsible for the full 10th grade English curriculum and the full World Cultures Social Studies program for 10th grade. And in addition to that, there would be an interdisciplinary component where students would study world literature along with world cultures as part of the interdisciplinary component. This recommendation will replace what is known as the resource course in 10th grade, and you'll see that a little bit down below as a course that's being deleted. The second category represents course title changes. The first 2 of those are changes that result from our effort to move away from what we typically call general courses towards applied courses, using those practical skill applications that I talked about earlier. Our 2 general math courses changing from that title to applied math is the reason for that. The 3rd title change is really an attempt to avoid some confusion. Applied ecology is a course offering in our science department. We feel a better description is environmental science, and this particular course called applied ecology is not intended as a tech prep course. So we feel the title change is necessary to avoid some confusion. It also gives a better description of the course. The 3rd category are courses to be dropped. There are 2 courses in the art department. They're dropping because of insufficient enrollment. In April of each year, we bring to you the course selections in different courses and oftentimes recommend that a course not be offered because of under-enrollment. If that occurs for too long a period of time, we eventually drop it from the offerings which are in the program. So what we're recommending here is that these 2 be dropped from the program of studies rather than just for the year. The resource class, of course, as I mentioned, is dropped because of the replacement by the interdisciplinary program up above. On the back of the last page, the 4th category These represent levels to be added and changed. As you know, we have courses offered at 3 different levels, 4.0, 5.0, and 6.0 at the high school. We have 2 courses in the business department. They are both semester courses. Up to this point, they have been offered only at the 4.0 level. We'd like to increase the opportunity and challenge to these courses by creating sections also at the 5.0 level. In the social studies program that was implemented for the first time this year, our original intent was just to offer it at those first 2 levels, 4.0 and 5.0. We now feel that since everyone is required to select offerings in these semester courses, that we need to be able to challenge at all 3 levels, so we want to extend that to level 6 as well. The existing introductory principles of technology course exists at level 5 to accommodate all those students in applied courses. We want to also offer that at the 4.0 level. So these represent the changes that we're proposing for 94-95. We're very excited about the Tech Prep program. Many members of the high school staff have been working very hard in planning and preparing for this. We're anxious to involve the community and members of the junior high school staff and parents in helping to define this program as it continues to evolve. I would suspect over the next couple of years you'll see additional Tech Prep initiatives and courses come forth as our program of studies grows and changes. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions or share your comments.
Don, I have a couple of questions. On the applied biology, you've got a level 4. Currently, there's a biology 1 that's at a level 4.
Right.
Would that be replacing that biology?
Not entirely. We would expect a few sections of applied biology would occur this coming year, but ultimately we would expect that applied courses will replace the general course at the 4.0 level.
So
I don't anticipate that this first year, but as the program grows in popularity and a course sequence develops, that we expect that might replace it.
They have to take biology in 10th grade.
That's correct.
That's a requirement.
Right.
Why not replace it completely
Well,
with this applied biology? I mean, you've got them already doing, so if you've got them in biology 1, the children who would be taking it in 10th grade who are coming in, this is their course. The applied biology is the 4.0 level, and then the other 2 would be the 5 and the 6 level instead of offering both of them. I don't see,
we
the
just
rationale.
feel that the whole process, moving towards a Tech Prep curriculum, is something that will take some time and something that will grow. We would like it to grow through interest and explanation and communication about the programs and the purposes of it down the road. So at this point, for this coming year, we'd like to introduce it just as at this level, continue to offer the other general biology at 4.0, but ultimately replacing it down the road. At least I think that's the goal of our group.
If we do a good job with counselors explaining the applied biology course, you'll see in the spring through our enrollment pattern that we will be reducing the numbers of sections of general biology, that after maybe a year or so under our belt with applied biology, that communication is out there amongst the parents as well, and people begin to self-select applied biology, which we think has much more relevancy than the
I just think you're adding a
traditional general.
level, and really you should be revamping that 4.0 level to this applied biology level, because those are the children that you're going to be targeting. And we had discussed this when we had talked about the children who normally take a 4.0 level, that they're really not challenged. If you offer them the 4.0 level, the 4 level, biology 1, and then the applied biology, they may just opt to take the easier one instead of the applied one, and they're not getting that challenge to the applied biology. So the replacement part of it, gives them the challenge for the applied part of it.
We're not necessarily indicating that one is easier than the other. No. Applied biology is a different approach and a different strategy.
But you're targeting the same. You're targeting children in the same level, and I think that level you should have them in the applied biology and say, okay, this is the level that you have, instead of offering the biology one. I would just get rid of that and just make it the applied biology. It's a perfect course
Makes sense.
for the children who are going to be in that course.
We feel strongly enough about applied biology and the applied program in technical prep that we could do that. It's gonna take some work to get it off the ground, but we think we can do that and make it a good, viable program. We would hope that even if we didn't eliminate general biology, that within a few years, our students would be self-selecting the applied biology. And you're just accelerating it by elimination of the general biology.
Well, it's my understanding with this being an initiative, you're trying to start with X number of students as opposed to the entire category or the entire level that you're talking about, that you're looking at so many students in which to test this or to try this out on.
This would force the issue
This would-
quicker.
Well, the thing is that you know, when we went to any of the seminars that we went to, we were targeting the children who are at the 4.0 level. And so by replacing it, we're giving them a more comprehensive 4.0 level so that they can use it in their applied. So you're targeting the same amount of children. You're just offering one course. And you're saying, you know, this is what we're offering you. And you'll find, without the two of them being offered, by forcing them to take, not forcing them, but by saying that you've got the applied biology one, you're saying to the children, we're offering you, you know, a different perspective of it, and the confusion would be less there also. I would imagine that everyone who's taking the 4.0 would be happy to take the applied.
Well, there's another component to that, and that is preparing our teachers to using these new strategies. Our attempt at this point is to prepare a certain group of the department to teach the course, and ultimately have all folks trained in these different strategies.
Except we're not going to turn students away from applied biology.
Yeah,
If we have 200 sign up for applied biology, then we're going to work with those teachers to have enough sections for all 200. We're not going to say we don't have the teachers trained and therefore you take general biology next year instead of applied.
I just think we shouldn't have.
You know, if we're committed to this and we really believe that this is a better way for them to learn, that'll prepare them better for when they leave school, then let's go with it and not go half-hearted.